Okay, so mics are shut down. I did start recording. For those of you that want to come back and take a look at this later, you certainly can. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can get to that later in the course. But first things first, here we are at Track Wrestling's homepage. For those of you that don't know, and I think most of you do, but if you need to order an event, you just go ahead and click on register to run a tournament from our homepage, and you can log in with your billing account or create one if you need to. And you can go ahead and order your tournament. The system will walk you through the rest. Most of you know how to do that. If there's questions on that, go ahead and let me know after the course is done. What we need to do first of all is log into our tournament. So at this point you've already ordered your tournament, but I can come either to browse or manage, and then I go to tournaments, and I'm going to search for my tournament. And of course my tournament tonight, as I mentioned, is the TWU dual tournaments. And so I can come right here and click. I'm going to switch my user type to administrator and then log in with my username and password. And this brings me into my tournament. So now I'm back on I'm here in my tournament page. A couple of items I want to mention right off the bat. The top menu right here, those of you that are new to Track Wrestling, if you haven't been through this yet, left menu is going to include pretty much everything you need throughout the course of your tournament. And as you work through your setup, your registration, bracketing, and so on, the menus kind of get specific to what you need in those. So we think it's a really good idea to work through and use the menu that pertains to the part of the tournament that you're working on. Of course, if some of you that have run track wrestling events for a long time like to work out of the left menu. Nothing wrong with that, but for those of you just getting started, we would definitely recommend working from these. The other thing I want to mention right off the bat is that if you want to add other admins or workers for that matter, if I come into my setup menu and I go to users, I could add administrators, statisticians, which we'll get to later, or also workers to this. So basically just click on any of these and you could add those from there. So that's a question we get asked on occasion, so I wanted to show that. And then the other thing off the bat, the to-do list, this flashing area over here, if I click on this, it's basically my manual that'll walk me through step by step all of the items that I need to do to run a successful tournament. And that doesn't matter whether you're working in a dual tournament like tonight or you're in a predefined tournament, open tournament, whatever the case might be. If I click on any of these, it'll open this document, it'll open a new window. You'll see written instructions, as well as in a lot of cases we have videos that are over on our YouTube channel that you can watch from here. So again, to-do list, great idea for especially for new people, but we also have a lot of people that have run a lot of tournaments and they get stuck on something, and the item a lot of times is here. So that's your first place to look. A couple of left menu items that we're not going to cover in depth as we work through our tournament. Direct link. If I come here, this direct link had a couple questions actually about this today. If I go ahead and use that direct link, I could paste that into either my website, maybe send it out on a flyer or something like that. And if somebody comes to this direct link, it brings them right to this tournament and not just to our home page. So the direct link, again, that's in the left menu. Also in this left menu, if I go to media contacts, I can click this button to add a media contact. I could put their address here. I'll select their team, which I don't have any teams yet, but once we do, you'd see the teams here, and then results can be sent to those folks. And that could be a media person, or it could also be, you know, a coach. It could be a parent, one of your boosters, whoever that might be. The print documents menu. In all of these menus along the way, there's some print items, but if you come into print documents in the left menu, you'll notice that all of the print functions are here. So if you ever need to print something and you're not sure where it is, come over to the print documents in the left menu and you can find just about whatever you want. Working on down the list, statistics. We have individual and team statistics. So after your tournament runs, or as your tournament's running for that matter, I can go to individual or team stats here. If I click on this bar, it shows me all of these items, and if you need to know who had the fastest fall or maybe who had the most match points, that's where you can find all that information. There won't be anything here now, of course, because this is a brand new tournament. And then finally over here in tie-breaking, in dual tournaments, this is kind of an important function. I'm going to touch on both of them real quickly. If I go to dual meet tie-breaking, This shows me, and it shows me in the order of how I'm going to break ties in a dual meet. These are defaulted in, and they're based on what the National Federation of High School tells us, or not even what they tell us, but what's listed in their bylaws. If you had a situation where you wanted to vary or kind of stray from that, you could check off of some of these or put them back on. You can actually change the order and then save that order. But in most cases, this will be kind of right on the money. But if you wanted to add a few there, you certainly could. And then also so that's for a dual meet, if a dual meet ends in a tie. And then in the round robins, this would be on a bracket. If it's a round robin bracket, maybe two teams both go 2-1 or something, this is going to break those ties for you. So again, that's over in the left menu. Make sure you know that's there, and if you need to make adjustments, you can go ahead and do that. Things that you want to do right away after you order your event. We think that planning is probably the most important thing that you can do throughout the course of your event. You want to plan out the number of computers that you need, kind of think of where those computers are going to be and the actual devices. Truth is, the actual number of computers is going to depend on the size of your event, but if you have questions on that, we can help you. Your internet connection, you want to think that out. Hardline is best, but certainly wireless works. You just want to make sure that you test those connections regardless of whether you're using hardline or wireless. And then also your printers. You want to make sure that your printers are fast enough. You want to make sure they're connected properly. Test those all out because you're going to be printing quite a few things like weigh-in sheets, coaches' information, bout sheets, that sort of stuff. If you're running electronically, there are less items to print, but there's still printing that's necessary. So a printer irregardless of which type of tournament you're running will be necessary. So just make sure you know what you're doing, know what you're going to use there, and make sure everything's working properly. The first step, I guess, within my tournament is going to be importing the settings from another tournament. So I've ordered my tournament. I'm ready to get going. If I go to my setup menu and click on import settings, what importing does is it allows me to import settings from maybe last year or another tournament that I've been to that I like how they are set up. And I can actually import a lot of the information right from those tournaments. And you'll see the items that you can import, and you just click on or off of these, and I can import those. I'm actually not going to do this step right now. You would do it at this point, but because I want to show you how to set these things up, I'm going to wait on that. I would basically just click the Get button. I would go search for my tournament, and I would associate this import with a particular tournament, check the things that I want to import, and then I would go ahead and import them. A couple of items on importing. You need to make sure that you're importing from the same format tournament. So if I'm running a dual tournament, I would have to import from another dual tournament. We do think it's a good idea for you guys to set up a tournament or two from scratch. If you just start importing on your first tournament, sometimes you don't really know why things are ending up where they're ending up, and you don't really have that lower level drilling down type knowledge that we want you to have. And also the other thing is you can select some of these. Let's say I wanted maybe my teams from one tournament. I could import. I could actually go and maybe grab my weight classes and settings from another one. So we'll get into importing in just a little bit, but that's kind of the basics. So again, that's over in the setup menu under import settings right here. The next thing we really want to do is come back into my setup menu. I'm going to click on settings, and I'm going to go through the settings of my tournament. And in dual tournaments, there's not a lot of settings that you'll need to adjust. It's certainly, if you look down at your list, it's certainly not like when you get into an open or a predefined tournament or a varsity type tournament. But this is the place where you could change the name of your tournament. I could go ahead and highlight, change that name, and I would save. I could change any of the information relating to the location of the tournament. The date you can't change. We need to change that. So if you do have a date change, if you either ordered it wrong or maybe your event is changed to a different date, just submit a ticket to us and we can make that date change for you. That's no problem at all. The other part from here that I want to cover real quickly is uploading your event logo. If I go over to my home page here, so you'll notice I have a bunch of tabs open here tonight, and I'll be bouncing back and forth. But if I go to this search page, and I'm actually going to be working with these Rapids Duels tournaments, you'll notice that some of them have these logos here. But the Rapids Duels, this one, actually this one's the one I'm going to be working with. This is the logo that's currently on this event. If you don't specify a logo and you don't have, say, a governing body, you're going to get this our just Track Wrestling logo. But if I wanted to change that, I could just come in here, this event logo upload URL. I click the upload button, and I'm just going to go browse on my computer and actually have this over on the desktop that I can go get. And I'm just going to use this Track Wrestling University logo that I have. And if I click open, you'll see that I've associated that. And if I go to continue, it's going to upload that. And in just a minute, I'll come back over here and show you how that updates. It does take a few seconds only because I'm working on 2 different servers here tonight. But that's how you upload. You can change that logo if you want to. The same is true with a flyer. If you have a flyer in your on your computer, if you wanted to upload that document, you could do that, and then people would be able to see that, and they would actually see that in this item right here, in this area. And I don't have any here, but let me go ahead and reload this page for you. And then you should notice that the 2011, well, it hasn't yet, but this will update to my new logo there. But the flyer you can also do from there. I can add website information, any other additional information. Maybe I want to put weigh-in times or concessions information or something like that. But that's where you would do all of that. And then, of course, you always want to use the Save button. And the next step, I apologize, we had somebody just join us a little bit late. Also in the settings, we won't go through all of these, but if you're not seeing something in one of these menus that you expect to see, like in the left menu, if you notice right now that I have use prelims set to no, so you're not seeing prelims in this left menu, or the setup for that matter. If I come back to use prelims and flip that to yes, and then this page you'll see that this one, flip it to yes, that page will update. And then now when I come back over into my left menu, you'll see that prelims is there. You'll also notice that my logo got added here. So that finally updated, and we're good to go. So if you're not seeing something in a menu, go ahead and check your settings page, because a lot of times that's the issue there. Next thing we want to do back in our setup menu is edit our deadlines. And so there's really 2 deadlines in dual tournaments that you'll need to set, and you'll see them here. The first one that says release lineups to the public, pretty self-explanatory. That's basically, it's up to you to decide when you want viewers to see this information online. Rosters, brackets if you created them, and things like that. The next one is the lockout statisticians deadline, and that's used to create a window of time for your statisticians to enter information about their team and their wrestlers. And we get questions on this a lot too, but a statistician is actually, it's a chosen team representative. Usually it's a coach, but it doesn't have to be. And that person's responsible for entering the team's roster and other wrestler information. So by setting up statisticians, it eliminates much of the data entry for you as the tournament administrator. And later on, we're going to be showing how we add these statisticians and explain how that process works and how we send out notification emails and things like that. Teams are actually going to be allowed to make changes to their lineups until the date that we've selected here for lockout statisticians. So that's the second one. So up until, if I want to change this, I forgot to show you this, if you just click on the calendar, I can change the date. Then I would just go ahead and save that. My next step then, I want to add my teams. So again, in my setup menu, I come down to teams, and you'll notice I don't have any teams here yet, and this is just what yours will look like if you haven't imported. All I'm going to do is click the Add Team button. It's very simple. I'll type my team name in there. I'm just going to add Kellner. And I put my abbreviation in there. If I needed to change the state, I could. If I want to put a team website, I could do that too. And then I go ahead and add that team. You can actually import teams from, let's say I'm running this tournament for the second year or consecutive years. I would go ahead and import those, and that's actually what I'm going to do in a little bit. But I could just go ahead and add the teams here using this button as well. If I need to make a change to a team, I can just click on that link, and I could edit the team information, and I come back to this page, or I could actually delete the team from here as well. So that's adding teams. Again, I'm going to go and import teams in a little while, so I'm just going to add the one just to save some time tonight. My next step is adding charts, and I'm going to do that by going to the Setup menu again and coming to Teams. And all dual tournaments must have at least one chart, and that's basically how we're going to see where those teams are, who wrestles who, how they move throughout the bracket. Most tournaments are only going to have one chart. The only time you're going to need more than one chart is if your tournament bracketing is too complex to fit on one chart. It's not common, but certainly it's out there. we actually have another course called Dual Tournaments 102 that's going to cover those more complex things and adding multiple charts. But for right now, we're just going to do our normal tournament, a simple tournament, and I'm going to click the Add Chart button, and I'm just going to call this TWU Duels, and then add that chart. And then now you'll notice that on many of these pages, I'm going to have this red link that is for my chart that I've added. So I have this chart, but we don't really know what it looks like. Once I've added the chart, I can select the bracket type. So that's my next step. I go to Setup and Bracket Types. And again, for those of you that have run individual tournaments, you'll see that some of these steps in the dual tournaments are similar. If you've run individual tournaments, typically you're going to do great running dual tournaments. It's quite honestly a little more simple, and most people think this process is a little bit easier yet. So, but again, I'm in my Setup menu. I came to Bracket Types, and then all I'm going to do from here is select my bracket type from here. So I can scroll down. You see all these bracket types that we have. I'm actually going to use a 6-team round robin for ours tonight. You'll see that updates. There's some HTML items and things here, and we're going to get to those in other courses. But if I want to see that sample of that bracket, I just click the View Sample, and I can see what that looks like. So again, this is just a real basic 6-team round robin. Everybody's going to wrestle everybody, and we'll see who's the winner at the end. And that's how I add my bracket type. I also want to add my weight classes, of course. And so if I come down in my Setup menu and then Setup and go to Weight Classes, just like in any other tournament, I click the Add Weight Classes button, and I can add my weight class and click Add, and that gets added for me. I go ahead and add my other weight classes. I'm going to import those for you. A lot of you will be able to import weight classes, especially if you're running high school tournaments or college for that matter, if you have standard weight classes. And I'm going to import the rest, so I'm just going to do one. But of course, I would just continue to click the Add Weight Class button to add the rest of my weight classes. I want to look at the rounds for my tournament for the chart that I've selected. So in the Setup menu, I can come down to Rounds. Most of you aren't going to need to make any changes here, but we do always point this out because the rounds page is pretty important in any tournament you're running in track wrestling. You can view the bracket from here. If you can click this button, and then I'm going to open this just to show you and make one point. If I had multiple charts, I'd see them here, but of course we're just working with one. But if I view this bracket, I had this open again, you'll notice that these regulation bouts, this is a bout string, and so if you hear that terminology, this is the bout string that's within that round. You're seeing that it's 1 through 3 in this round, and that makes sense, I think, to most of you, that in round 1 of this tournament we have 6 teams. There's three duels in that first round. And so in round 1 of the tournament, there's 1 through 3. And then, of course, round 2 would be 4 through 6 and so on. If you needed to make adjustments here, you could just click on this and make those adjustments. Again, most of you aren't going to have to make any changes there. The other thing to point out here is that right now you'll see that I have 4 bouts per sheet. Again, I'm printing bout sheets. This is where you make changes, not only in dual tournaments, but in any track wrestling tournament. If I click here, I can change the number of bouts per sheet that I have on a bout sheet. So right now, it's set to 4. They're going to be very small. It's going to be in quarters. But let's just say I want 2 bouts per sheet. I can change that and click Save. And now, later on, when I go to print bout sheets, in round 1, I have 2 bouts per sheet. Of course, I'd probably keep those all the same, but for our sake, that's just fine. Want to set up team logins next. And again, we talked about statisticians, and that's what we're doing here. I'm going to come into the Setup menu and go to Users and Statisticians. And so team logins, those are the statistician logins. And again, that's going to be somebody from each team that can come in and enter the information for that team. And in a lot of cases, they're going to be able to import their roster from their track wrestling roster that they have online. But if I come into this and I go to Statistician Operations, I can do this Add Team Statisticians. And remember now that when I do this, I only have one team listed. That was that Kellner team. But I'm on my Statisticians page. I can add a team statistician. And you'll notice I get this message saying you're about to add a new statistician for each team. And that's exactly what I want to do. If I click OK, because I only have one team that's here, but if I had, all 6 teams, it's going to create a statistician username and password for each of the teams that I have. So again, the steps here are probably really important that you go in that order, because if you didn't have teams and you ran this operation, you wouldn't see anything here. I can make changes to this. I can click on it, and let's say that I wanted to add an email address for somebody. I could do this. If I wanted to, you'll notice that the passwords and the usernames are kind of random, and in some cases a little bit unique. If you wanted to change those, you certainly could, and then also put the email address there. I'm actually not going to change anything there. I want to switch over kind of quickly to my real tournament that I have here. So this is the tournament that I'm actually importing from. This was a tournament from a couple years ago. But if I go into the statisticians on a real tournament on the live site, and I go to users and statisticians, you'll notice that in these cases, if the information's in our system, a lot of you are maybe in states where you're using the NWCA and the OPC to do weight management. Also, Wisconsin teams have another weight system that we have that data for. If I add team statisticians, these are going to be populated automatically. It's going to be that minimum weight admin that gets added there. So just to kind of show you that point there as you add team statisticians. If I go back to teams, and this is actually how that link gets made. And so we've associated this team that I typed in with a team in our system. If that's confusing to anybody, I apologize. I'm going through that kind of quickly just as a side note. But the main part I wanted to make sure that you saw is that when you add team statisticians, if we have a statistician or an administrator for that team, the email address just might be there as well. So if you don't have that, you can always use this operation from here in this drop-down that says search email archive. And I could go ahead and type, and I'll use Rapids only because I know those guys. If I click search, it's going to, there's actually probably quite a few of them there. I should have taken a team that didn't have quite so many. Well, let's do, sorry about that. If I search, I'm not sure why I'm not seeing those guys there. I'll do a different one. So if I search the email archive, and I go, and let's do, I don't know, maybe calendar. No, that's on the wrong site. Okay, so again, I just used part of a term or part of a word there. You'll see that anybody that's been in our system from any of these teams has an email there. You can go back and look. Doesn't mean that that's the right one for you, but maybe you could find what you need from there. So anyway, that's kind of a handy feature that you might be able to use. So once I have all of my statisticians added here, I want to send out an email to everybody. Of course, I want the email address here. But all I do is come back to this page, and I go to send notification emails. I would enter my name, my phone number, and my email address here. Again, that's as a tournament admin. And then what's going to happen is an email is going to go out to all those coaches, and it's who are I say coaches, but the statisticians to these emails. And it's going to have a link to log right into their team. It's going to have a username and password and also instructions. It's going to tell them the windows of time that you've created with your deadlines, and they can go ahead and enter their rosters for you. So again, as a tournament admin, that saves you a whole bunch of time, and it allows them to get their rosters in right when they go ahead and get that email. I want to show you one other thing too, just as long as we're on this topic. If I go back to the Rapids duels and I click on one of these teams and I use Wisconsin Rapids, this is where those coaches will end up, where the statisticians will end up. So they'll get that email, they can click a link, and they'll go right to a page that looks similar to this. And if they have a roster in our system, which a lot of teams will and a lot of states do, if I click here to import, what they're going to do is they're going to see everybody that's on their roster. They're going to see the records as current as they are. And all they need to do is just check mark the wrestlers that they want to bring to the tournament, and they could go ahead and upload those. So, of course, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm actually going to reload this page just to make sure I don't corrupt anything there. I'm going to reload that, and then I'll move from that. But again, that's what those statisticians will see from there. So at this point, I'm actually going to do the importing that would have happened a few steps ago, but I want to bring us up to speed and get ready to go over to the testing site. So to show that importing process, I go to Setup, Import Settings, and then I'm going to go get my event, and I'm going to use Rapids Duels. and click go, and I'm actually using this 2011 one, and I just click on the event and you'll see that it gets updated here. And I'm only going to bring through a couple of things. I'm going to bring through the weight classes because I didn't add all of those, and then the teams. And that's going to bring some wrestlers for me too. So teams and statisticians. Actually, I'm not going to bring the wrestlers, but teams and statisticians. And then I can go ahead, I'm going to check mark this, and this is basically saying that I'm going to import and overwrite everything that I've already done, which is exactly what I want to do, but it's important to make sure I know that. I click import. I'm going to type import just to verify that's what I want to do. And then now when I go back to the two items, if I come back to weight classes, you'll see that now I have those all in. And then I also imported teams, and those are all here. You might notice that I don't have that season match right here, and that's only because I haven't associated with the season. And I do that only because we're testing here. You probably would have a season there. And you'll also notice that under my users and statisticians, linking this back all together, I brought all those in too. So again, if you import your teams and statisticians and you know that those emails are right from the previous year, you're going to have all those there again. So now we're kind of up to a point, and again, we imported at kind of a weird time there only for the sake of this course, but now I'm going to go ahead and copy this to testing. So I'm going to come to, I'm set up, I'm ready to practice. I've got the basic setup going. I come to import settings again, and at the bottom of this page, there's a link here that says copy the current state of this tournament over to the testing site. I'm going to click that link to take it over there. And this takes a few seconds, but what we're really going to do is we're going to take a copy of whatever I currently have right here on the live site in my actual tournament, and it's going to create an image of that and place it over in our testing site for you to practice. And that just takes a minute, but you're going to see this page update in just a second. It's going to look just like our live site, with the exception being in the background, right on cue, that you'll see this testing site in the background, so you'll always know that you're on the testing site. And all I'm going to do is sign in just as if I'm on the live site. The testing site is, you know, of course, where we want you. Oop, not that one, TWU. We want you here, of course, doing your practice. We want to make sure that this is, you know, where you're messing around and making mistakes. And if you ever get to a point where you've kind of messed up your tournament so bad on the testing site that it doesn't make any sense, just go back to the live site, copy it over again. Rest assured that nothing you do on the testing site is going to have any bearing whatsoever on the live site. So I'm going to log into my TW Duels tournament just like I do on the live site, and this is where we'll work from the rest of the time. So I log in just like I did before. So the week of my event, I'm going to continue to test. We're kind of getting closer to when my tournament's going to actually run. I want to go ahead and I want to monitor the data entry. So I want to make sure that rosters are coming in. Maybe I'll have to contact coaches if they're not getting that stuff in by a certain time. I'll do that from my user statisticians. And this isn't a real good example here on the testing site because there's no login. But if I come back to my Rapids Duels tournament, the one that we're kind of mimicking here, I can show you what that looked like. I go to Setup Users, and then of course to my Statisticians page. And now you'll see over here that you see that last login. This will tell me if coaches have been here, if they've been trying to get their rosters in. And then always on this page under Teams, if I go to Setup and Teams, if I click on any of these teams, I'll be able to see any wrestlers that we have in here. So I think I mistakenly mentioned that I was going to import wrestlers when I did the import. That's not something you can do. I'm actually going to kind of generate those for you here to show you how to practice on the testing site. But this is where I would see rosters, and I'll show you that in just a second. I kind of showed you how teams are going to be importing rosters, but for the testing site, what I want to do is add some random wrestlers here. So I'm going to do this first by coming to the wrestlers page. And again, this is just on the testing site that we need to do this. And I'm going to fill the weight classes. And I'm going to click go. And what this is going to do is it's going to add an unknown wrestler to every weight class. And for those of you that have done this in other tournaments, in open tournaments, this is kind of like the add random wrestlers function. But I'm basically just going to fill the unknowns. It's a slot for each weight class for each team. And then in my left menu again, of course this is just on the testing site, you're going to see something over here called operations. And that's only on the testing site, but I'm going to go there, from this drop down, I'm going to fill the unknowns. And all that's going to do is replace the unknown wrestlers with fake wrestlers. So, and that's exactly what I want to do to practice. So if I come back to wrestlers, you'll notice now that instead of all these unknowns, I've got a fake name. It's got some record information, grade, that sort of thing. So now we've kind of got a mock tournament for us to work with. So again, you wouldn't do that on live site, of course. You can't do that, but you do that on the testing site. And as we get closer to the event, of course, the night before, you want to make sure that everything's set up and your printers are running correctly. You want to check your internet connections. That's never a good thing to show up on the day of your tournament, and know that you have some issues. And of course, test your printers again too. We want you making those mistakes and asking those questions during the week as much as possible, rather than doing that when your gym's full on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever the case might be. So we are now to your tournament dates. And the first thing we want to do, and you can actually do this probably the night before once everything's in, but if I come into registration and printing, I can print a team roster. And this is a good idea, and I can select any of the teams, or I can select them all by selecting the blank spot above there. And if I click go, actually I'll show you a print preview here. It's just a little bit easier to see. And what this is going to be is it's as the coaches come through the door, I might give this sheet to each of the coaches. That way they can verify that their rosters are correct. Maybe I want to make some changes to records and that sort of thing. But I could give one of these to each coach, make sure that all of our rosters are correct. The other thing I'll probably want to print here, if I go to registration and printing, I'm going to probably print a weigh-in sheet. And this might vary from state to state depending on how you want to do this, but this is another good document for you to use. It's not just for weigh-ins. A lot of people see weigh-in sheet and think it's just for weigh-ins, but there's tons of different uses for this. But you'll notice that I can select from these drop-downs a lot of different pieces of data. I have team, weight class, first name, last name, and so on. The one column that I'm going to add for this example is actual weight. So again, I'm just using this drop-down and going to actual weight. And I'm going to do this as an actual weigh-in sheet. And I could save those settings, but I guess I won't in this case. I'm going to sort this by team, so each team is going to have its own sheet. It's going to be it could be a page break after the teams. I could sort this by weight class too, depending on how I'm weighing in. But if I view this weigh-in sheet and then now do a print preview, you'll notice now that each team, if I go down, there's page 1. If I go to the second team, this team Holman, here's their roster, and if they had more than one per weight, they would be shown here. And I actually have this box now to put an actual weight in. So if I want to do my weigh-ins using this form, I could do that. Again, I could sort this by weight class as well. Some states have a specific document that they need to use, but a lot of times you could use this if you don't need to use that, your state-specific document. So the weigh-in sheet, again, kind of get familiar with that, test that, play around with that in the testing site too, and see there's lots of uses for that one. If I need to make roster changes, I can do that. Probably in a team tournament like this, in a dual tournament, the easiest way is, if I stay in my registration menu, go to teams, let's say that Holman has a roster change and we need to add somebody. So there's a wrestler that showed up that we didn't get imported or whatever. I can go ahead and click add team member, and it's pretty simple, and I'll go, I'm going to go Jordy Nelson. He's at Toma, and he's going to be at 106. I can select his grade. Let's say he's a sophomore. I could put his record in there. Maybe he's just coming out. My actual weight, I don't know if I would need to add that in there or not. That'd be up to you, but then I can go ahead and add him. And now you'll see that Jordy's right here on Holman's team. If I would need to change Jordy or anybody else on the roster for that matter, I just click on them and I go ahead and let's say that he's actually a 113 pounder, and I save him. And now you'll see that Jordy's here and he's now at 113. And then if I needed to delete a wrestler, if I wanted to get rid of him altogether, I could click him again, and you notice that there's a delete participant button there. I go ahead and click him. And when I come back to their team, now you notice that Jordy is gone. So those are some ways to make roster changes pretty quickly. Again, you'll notice that those steps are pretty similar to other forms of tournaments, other formats of tournaments, but some slight variations. Well, I'm ready now. I've weighed in and my rosters are all set. I can go ahead and we're going to be ready to build our brackets. So I'm going to do that from the bracketing menu. I'm going to click bracketing from here. and I'm going to go to Teams. And this brings me to my Teams page. I'm going to open the chart that I'm using. So in our case, again, and for most of you, it's just going to be this one chart. If you do have multiple charts, which we'll show in the next course, there'll be multiple red links here as well. So, but I'm going to click on TWU duals, and it brings me to this kind of bracket building page. First step is to add the teams, and you'll notice that it's kind of highlighted, so hopefully you don't miss that when you come here. But again, it's going to be over in your to-do list. I'm going to click Add Teams to Chart, and I'm going to select all of these teams. I could select a couple. Again, if I had multiple charts, this would be the case. But in my case, I'm going to highlight the first one. Oop, I went too far. Scroll down to the last one. I'm going to use my Shift and highlight all of them so they're all blue. And then I go ahead and finish. As you see, a lot of times in track wrestling, we're going to confirm that's what you want to do. I type Add. And then now what I've done is I've taken this chart and I've added all these teams to this chart. We don't know where they're placed yet, but they're all on this chart and they're ready to get placed on a line on those brackets. I can do a couple things. I could just go ahead, I could seed all the teams using this drop down and just click the Build Bracket button. And if you didn't care the order, if you didn't care about seeding, you could just go ahead and do that real quickly. Otherwise, I can use these drop downs to place the teams on the bracket. I can go ahead from here. If I had that chart, you know, I'd want to know where they're going to fall. But in my case, let's just say that I just have two teams that I want to make sure meet in the last round. So I'm going to seed them 1 and 2. So let's say Wisconsin Rapids. I'm going to put them 1, and I'm going to select 1 for the seed. If you look over here, 1 for the seed, and they're going to be at the top of 1. That's the line of the bracket. So I put 1 here, and let's say that let's use Luxembourg. They're going to be 2. So they're going to be the 2 seed, and I want to make sure that that bout or that duel goes last. And then all I'm going to do now is come here. I'm just going to seed the top 2 because the rest of them, it's just going to be random. And I go ahead and I build my bracket. And so now I can view the bracket. You'll notice that I have this view bracket here button, view bracket button here now. I could also rebuild it if there was something that I wanted to do differently. But let me show you that that bracket got built. I'm going to view this bracket and make it a little bigger for you. And now you'll see that the bouts are all there, the duels are ready. And you'll also notice in the last round we have our 2 teams, Wisconsin Rapids and Luxembourg. Those are in the last round, and that's in fact what I wanted. If I wanted to make changes, some of you are going to maybe want to hand pick who wrestles who in each round. It's pretty easy to do also. I would just click on any of these bout numbers, or I guess these are match numbers, but that will open that particular duel. And I could change the teams that are in this duel that way. So some of you will run tournaments where you just want to kind of hand pick each particular match. Maybe it's not necessarily a tournament, so to say. It's just you're matching teams up. You could certainly customize using that. And that's how you would do that. And so our bracket's built. Now we're ready to just go ahead and print it out. A couple ways you can do that. Of course, if I hit the view bracket, I could do this, and I could just go ahead and do a print preview and print from there. But again, using our menus, if I go to the operating menu and go to printing and I go to bracket, it's going to bring me to that same place. So again, if you're not quite sure how you're getting to the print functions, there's always a print function in most of those menus. So I would, of course, do a print preview, landscape it, and go ahead and print my bracket. Next thing I want to do then is print bout sheets. So I'm running on paper. If you're going to use Track Wrestling to print bout sheets, which you can do, some people might just use a scorebook and enter those after. Obviously, electronic bouts is an option, but tonight we're not covering that. All I'm going to do is come to operating, printing, and bout sheets. So again, pretty self-explanatory. I can select a starting weight class, and that might come in handy if we're going up each round, or maybe the draw weight was like 132, for instance. I could also choose to only print round 1's bout sheets to start, which might be a good idea. Maybe just print a round at a time, and then I could go ahead and print. And if I do a print preview, it's a little easier to see here. Make that bigger. You'll see now that I have 2 bouts per sheet because I changed that earlier. You remember that in my next rounds I have 4 bouts per sheet, which to me is a little small, but that's completely up to you. You'll notice that 132 is our starting weight, and we have the 2 wrestlers that we had currently in the rosters wrestling in that match on the bout sheet. So again, this might work for you. Certainly a nice, easy way for you to print bout sheets. and that's there. And again, just kind of scroll through. I could print those and go ahead, take the bout sheets out, and run my tournament. Remember that if you want to change the number of bouts per page, that was over on the rounds page. If I clicked on this, and I can make that adjustment there. So just kind of a review there quick. So the bout sheets are out, wrestlers are wrestling, and the duels are going. As those bout sheets come back, or if you're using a different method of getting those results back to the head table, at any rate, I go to operating and bout entry. And again, that's going to look similar to other tournament formats as well. All I'm going to do is select the correct duel. So let's say that I wanted this, let's say the second duel, Luxembourg versus Holman, and it wouldn't matter. I could switch my starting weight. I think I said it was 132. So if I was at 132, you'll just notice that that brings the 132 to the top. And then I would just enter the score by clicking on a weight class. So at 132, I have the bout sheet back for that one. That match is done. I would come here. I would select a winner. Could be this wrestler. I would go ahead and select the type of victory. And I just want to show you this too. Those of you that have seen our other courses have seen this before. But we're saying that Bo won by major, and let's say that we're saying he has a, let's say it was a 6-0. If I click save, this message is always going to come up telling you that 6-0 is not a major. Either you selected the wrong win type, or maybe you need to adjust the score, and maybe that was 9. If I click save, you'll notice now that I see this. It's kind of a a sentence saying who is the winner, what the score was, how many team points were awarded, and then also your team score is down here. And then you would just basically go ahead, continue with 138, and go right on down the line. If you needed to change your duel, enter bout results from a different duel, you could do that. If I need to go back and change this, I just click back on it, just like I entered it in the first place, and I could go ahead and update the score. Maybe this was 11-0, and I would save that, and everything would update from there. And I would continue throughout the tournament. Now, on the testing site, it's probably not feasible for me to go through, and it's not time efficient certainly to go through and just enter all these bout results. I can also, just like I would in an individual tournament, simulate these results. And I'm going to do that again in the left menu. I'm going to come to this operations menu that I mentioned earlier when we added the fake wrestlers. If I go to operations, you'll see that the fill unknowns was there, but I can also enter bouts. So I'm going to go to enter bouts. I only have one chart, so I'm going to select that. If I didn't, it would default to this one anyway. But then thinking back to my bracket, I have 3 bouts in that first round, so I want to simulate our whole first round being done, so I'm just going to put 3 there. And if I click enter, it takes just a second, and now that would be updated. So if I come back to operating, and I can, let's say that I go to bout entry, I can get here a lot of ways, but you'll notice now that all of these results got entered for all 3 of these duels in the first round. And so if I see the bracket, which is what we really wanted to do, if I come back to the bracket and I select TWU duels. So here's my bracket. You'll see that I have a team score and a winner, and again, it's kind of randomly generated, but it's a good way for you to simulate moving throughout your tournament. And you just kind of continue on that way. There's just a couple other items before I open the mics back up. One of them is relating to scoring. So in the setup menu, if I go to team scoring, there's a couple of items here that you could change. Let's say for whatever reason I wanted to change the amount of points that are awarded for a particular win type. I could do that here just by clicking on it and putting in the appropriate number. Again, these are defaulted in. I think most of you won't need to change that, but certainly if that's something you want to do and need to do, you can do it there. And then the next thing that I want to show you is an operating and then bout entry. It's also related to team points, but let's say in this Luxembourg-Holman duel that there was a team point taken away. I come here to the Adjust Team Points button, and I can, let's say it was Luxembourg, and they had a -1, and maybe it was a misconduct, or whatever the reason might be, and I go ahead and add it. You'll notice a couple things. You'll notice that it gets added down here, and subtracted from here, and it also adjusts the team score from there too. Also from this page, I could print bouts, I could print lineups if that's appropriate for you, and then also a summary. Because this match is done, if I go ahead and print the summary, I could pick whatever dual meet that I want, and I go ahead and I click go. And that might be really hard for you to see. Let me see if I can do a print preview and make that a little bigger for you. But basically, it is that dual meet summary. So maybe you're handing that out to fans, or maybe your coaches, or whatever the case might be. But that's a way for you to get your dual meet summaries there too. So that is basically how you run a dual meet tournament on Track Wrestling. There's probably some questions that some of you may have, so I'm going to open the mics back up in just a minute, but I do want to thank you before we go too far for joining us tonight. These courses have been pretty popular. People seem to be wanting to know how to do these things, and we're happy to do it. They're also going to, the video is running tonight, and that video I should have up. You'll see that from that courses page on our website. So I should have that up tomorrow by like mid-morning, I would think. And we also have more courses coming. I do want to also mention, and a lot of you already know this, but we do have discounting for multiple courses. So $5 off the second, $10 off everything after that. So for those of you looking to take more classes, hopefully that's a way to do that a little more economically. And then, of course, as always, let us know through our ticket system or give us a call if you have questions. So, okay, I'm going to open the mics back up now and see if anybody has questions. Okay, I think the mics are open. So again, we're probably going to hear a little bit of that chatter in the background, but certainly that's okay. For those of you that need to go or don't have questions, or aren't going to stick around, that's just fine. You guys are free to just kind of sign out and go your way. For those of you that have questions, go ahead, fire away. See what I can do.
I'm good to go, Shane. Thanks for the information. It really helped.
You bet. Yeah, absolutely. Again, if you guys need to run, feel free, but I'll stick around as long as you need to.
Hey, Shane, Paul DeFosi. I'm out of here. Thanks for
everything. Paul. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for joining.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, it's Matt. Can you hear me?
Yep. You cut out when people are just logging off. It pauses for a second. You probably noticed that as well. But yep, I can hear you, Matt.
Yep. All right. My question, the only one I have is, we've got a big screen in our gymnasium. We just got a brand new gymnasium, which is really nice. Do you have anything in these like dual tournaments or just tournaments in general that you can pull up on a computer screen that's connected to that, and that way fans can see, and it like updates team scores and everything up there?
Sure. So there's a couple of things, and probably the question you have is maybe even more related to electronic bouts. And in the electronic bouts portion of this, we'll definitely cover this in greater detail. But if this is the match display, so if I'm in operating and I go to match display.
Let me refresh my screen. I think the presentation's frozen on mine.
Okay. Let me know when you can see us again.
Sure. Oh, I just clicked the not to join again there.
Yep, I just let you back in, so you should be able to see that.
Now I can see it.
Do you see us again? Okay. So in operating, if I go to the match display, now if you're not running electronic bouts, this probably isn't going to be the solution, only because there's that lag time between when the results get entered and when the next match starts. So, but this would be similar to the mat assignment display in individual tournaments, and so it actually is called that. But you could go through and select what you wanted to display on each of these and then project that as well. So probably, and also from here too, there's a team score where you can do announcements in here. You can do scores and that kind of thing. Two ways probably to handle that. The next course, which is I think in about 2 weeks, we'll cover this in pretty great detail. Or if you wanted to, sometime call in tomorrow or later in the week or whenever the case might be, and we can walk you through some of that stuff too.
Sure. Okay.
But the answer to the question is yes. We definitely have that for you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for joining.
Shane, this is Ken Huff. I'm going to move on to the next class and sign
Okay.
up for. In fact, I'm signing up for one now, so I'm good with what you told me, and I'll check the video tomorrow. But it all sounds pretty fundamental.
Good deal. Yeah, and yeah, check that video, and if you have questions, certainly because of the issue, be sure to let me know. Call in, let one of us help you through it. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, sure will. And like I said, I'm signing up for another one here. So.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Have a good night.
Bye.
Anybody else with questions? I see still a couple of you on the line. Otherwise, if we don't have questions, I'll be here in just a minute. All right. So